What if we told you some of the best laughs from the 1970s were cut short before they could hit their stride? These sitcoms came, cracked a few smiles, and vanished, leaving behind fans who still wonder what could have been. From clever premises to unforgettable characters, these shows had every reason to thrive. Today, we're revisiting 20 short-lived 1970s sitcoms that truly deserved a second season. The Girl with Something Extra. Starring Sally Field and John Davidson, this NBC sitcom blended romance and supernatural comedy in the most charming way. Field played a newlywed with ESP. Yes, she could read minds, and that twist brought a whimsical flair to an otherwise traditional newlywed comedy. The chemistry between the leads was electric, and the potential for endless situational misunderstandings was comedy gold. But despite solid ratings and a likable cast, the show was canceled after just one season. Audiences were only beginning to fall in love with the quirky premise. In a TV landscape where gimmick comedies thrived, The Girl with Something Extra had all the right ingredients to grow into a beloved staple. Today, it's a forgotten gem, but its concept still sparkles with possibility. The Texas Wheelers. With Jack Elam and a young Mark Hamill, the Texas Wheelers had grit, heart, and humor wrapped in the rugged charm of a backwoods family. Elam played a deadbeat dad trying to reconnect with his children in the wake of their mother's death, and the emotional depth ran deeper than most sitcoms dared to go. Unfortunately, ABC buried it in a terrible time slot, and it was yanked off the air after just 4 episodes. But critics praised its mix of gruff honesty and sharp wit, and viewers who caught it never forgot it. It was ahead of its time, balancing laughs with real life in a way modern dramedies now emulate. With stronger network support, it could have matured into something groundbreaking. Hot L Baltimore. Norman Lear took a big swing with this bold and controversial sitcom based on Lanford Wilson's stage play. Set in a rundown hotel filled with misfits and lost souls, Hot L Baltimore featured taboo subjects and marginalized characters rarely seen on network TV. It was the first show to feature a gay couple as recurring characters, and the ensemble cast delivered fearless performances. But the network grew uneasy with its raw themes, and the show was canceled after 13 episodes. Dusty's Trail. Essentially, Gilligan's Island in the Wild West, Dusty's Trail starred Bob Denver as the bumbling sidekick on a wagon train lost in the wilderness. It was created by Sherwood Schwartz, the same mind behind Gilligan's Island, and followed a nearly identical formula, zany characters stuck in misadventure. While critics rolled their eyes at the concept, kids and families tuned in weekly for the slapstick antics and frontier chaos. But it had the kind of lighthearted charm Saturday evenings were made for. Denver's comedic timing and the ensemble's chemistry made it a comfort show with tons of potential. It didn't need reinvention, just more time to settle into its groove. On the Rocks. Airing as the edgy companion to Barney Miller, this prison-set sitcom tackled life behind bars with unexpected warmth and wit. Adapted from the British series Porridge, it followed 3 inmates navigating prison routines with sarcasm. The cast was fantastic, especially Hal Williams, and the writing managed to make institutional life feel strangely relatable. While critics appreciated its boldness, it struggled to find an audience and was shelved after 23 episodes. But with social commentary, working-class grit, and rich character dynamics, it was ripe for expansion. In the age of prestige TV, On the Rocks would have been retooled as a breakout hit. Karen was CBS's attempt to mix political satire with light-hearted charm, and it starred Karen Valentine as a spunky young staffer at a consumer protection agency. With her natural charisma and relatable warmth, Valentine brought a glow to every scene, balancing naivety with determined spirit. The show was quirky, socially conscious, and gave women a rare lead role in a politically themed comedy. But despite its timely premise and well-meaning humor, it struggled with ratings and was gone after 13 episodes. Still, its potential was unmistakable. In an era craving representation and social relevance, Karen was just warming up to something meaningful. With today's hunger for smart female-led workplace comedies, The Montefuscos. NBC's The Montefuscos was a slice-of-life sitcom about a large Italian-American family in New Haven, Connecticut. Airing just once a week, it packed the energy of a Sunday dinner, complete with banter, misunderstandings, and heartfelt hugs. Critics dismissed it as too derivative, All in the Family, or The Waltons, but it was actually a breath of fresh air. The show celebrated family tradition, generational conflict, and cultural pride in a way that felt authentic. But it barely lasted 8 episodes before NBC pulled the plug. It deserved more time to connect with audiences, especially those who saw themselves in its boisterous dinner table arguments. Had it aired in a different slot, the Montefuscos might have become a beloved family staple. The McLean-Stevenson Show. After leaving MASH, McLean-Stevenson headlined his own sitcom as Michael Taylor, a hardware store manager juggling work and family life. The show was gentle, character-driven, and full of everyday charm, an antidote to the louder sitcoms of the time. Stevenson's affability and dry humor were front and center, and the ensemble cast supported him beautifully. Unfortunately, high expectations and poor scheduling doomed it from the start. It didn't have the fire of MASH, but it had heart, and viewers who tuned in saw glimpses of a show that could have blossomed. Paul Sand in Friends and Lovers. Paul Sand played a shy, soft-spoken double bass player for the Boston Symphony Orchestra, trying to balance his quirky love life and demanding family. The show had a gentle, intellectual humor that stood apart from the louder, brasher sitcoms of the time. It was produced by MTM Enterprises, the same team behind The Mary Tyler Moore Show, and boasted guest appearances from future stars like Penny Marshall. Critics loved its low-key, character-driven charm, but CBS gave it a tough Saturday night slot, and it couldn't survive the ratings game. Audiences never got the chance to fall for its mellow rhythm. In a world of fast-paced comedies, Friends and Lovers was the kind of slow-burn sitcom that would have flourished if given a second shot. Today, its quirky, romantic tone would be right at home on streaming platforms. Mr. T and Tina. A bold spin-off from Welcome Back, Kotter, this show featured Pat Morita as Taro Takahashi, a traditional Japanese inventor navigating life in America with his progressive American governess, Tina. As one of the earliest Asian American-led sitcoms in U.S. history, Mr. T and Tina was groundbreaking, but it was also a casualty of its time. With awkward writing and network interference, the show struggled to balance cultural satire with broad comedy. It only aired 5 episodes, but its ambition was huge. The chemistry between Morita and co-star Susan Blanchard hinted at something special had it been allowed to evolve. Today, with growing interest in diverse representation and cross-cultural storytelling, this series would be embraced, and a second season could have refined its voice. Its short life still left a mark in TV history. The Tony Randall Show. Fresh off his success on The Odd Couple, Tony Randall starred in this underrated sitcom as a Philadelphia judge, balancing courtroom absurdities and personal chaos. The humor was sharp, the scripts witty, and Randall's polished delivery made every episode sparkle with intelligence. Though it lasted 2 short seasons, the show never quite caught on with mass audiences despite its quality. Produced by MTM and created by Gary David Goldberg, it had all the pedigree and promise of a classic. Yet network shuffling and lack of promotion left it in limbo. Fans of smart, literate comedy still regard it as a hidden gem. Had it been allowed a few more seasons, it could have joined the pantheon of TV's most beloved court-centered comedies. Randall gave it his all, and audiences were better for it. Turnabout. Before Freaky Friday became a pop culture staple, NBC's Turnabout tried the gender-swap sitcom formula. Based on the 1931 novel, the show followed a married couple, Sam and Penny Alston, who magically switch bodies after a mysterious wish. The premise was hilarious, the performances delightful, and the situational comedy endless. It challenged gender norms and highlighted the absurdities of daily life from the other side. But after just 7 episodes, the network pulled the plug. Maybe audiences weren't ready for a body-swap sitcom in prime time, but it had real potential. With better timing and marketing, Turnabout could have been a conversation-starting classic. Today's audiences would eat up its progressive premise. It was ahead of its time, and television let it down. The Betty White Show. Starring the legendary Betty White as Joyce Whitman, a fading actress starring in a low-budget cop show, This sitcom delivered meta humor and behind-the-scenes Hollywood absurdity long before it was trendy. It reunited White with Mary Tyler Moore Show, Alums, and had sharp writing, great timing, and White's unmatched comedic flair. But CBS shuffled its schedule and gave it little support. Only 14 episodes aired before it was quietly canceled. That's a shame because it showcased Betty White at her best, bold, sassy, and hilariously self-aware. Had it been given time, The Betty White Show might have become a cult favorite or even reinvented how we viewed showbiz comedies. It deserved a longer life, just like the icon herself. Faye. Starring Lee Grant as a newly divorced woman rebuilding her life in her 40s, Faye was groundbreaking for its honest portrayal of single adulthood and female empowerment. In an era when divorce was still taboo in pop culture, Faye tackled real issues with humor and dignity. Grant was mesmerizing, smart, vulnerable, and fiercely independent. The show earned critical acclaim and even an Emmy nod, but NBC canceled it after just 10 episodes. Why? Some say it was too real, too fast for a network still clinging to outdated norms. But in hindsight, Faye was ahead of its time, paving the way for future dramedies about women finding themselves later in life. It deserved more than a single season. It deserved a movement. Temperature's Rising Show. A retooling of a prior sitcom, this hospital comedy starred Cleavon Little and later Paul Lynde, mixing zany slapstick with sharp social jabs. Set in a dysfunctional hospital, it balanced biting satire and absurd humor long before Scrubs or Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Unfortunately, it was plagued by constant cast changes and rebranding efforts. Audiences couldn't keep up, and neither could the ratings. But the premise had so much to offer, a surreal take on medical life, led by magnetic comedic talent. It was a victim of its own identity crisis. A stable cast and consistent vision could have turned the new Temperature's Rising Show into a trend-setting success. It was almost brilliant, and that's the tragedy. I'm a Big Girl Now. Okay, sneaking just over the 1970s edge, I'm a Big Girl Now starred Diana Canova and Danny Thomas in a warm-hearted generational sitcom. Canova played a newly divorced single mom moving back in with her old-fashioned father, and the show explored parenting, independence, and shifting gender roles. It had a perfect blend of sass and sentimentality. Danny Thomas brought his classic charm, while Canova radiated modern confidence. The show had solid ratings and great chemistry, but ABC pulled it after just one season, fearing audience drop-off. In truth, it was a sitcom about evolving family dynamics long before that became TV's bread and butter. A second season could have built something truly special. It still lingers in the memory of those who gave it a chance. Melvin and Howard. Based on the quirky true story that inspired the Oscar-winning film, Melvin and Howard got a pilot, but never a full season. It followed Melvin Dummer, a gas station attendant who claimed to have picked up billionaire Howard Hughes and later appeared in The Eccentric's Will. The show leaned into that working-class whimsy and American dream absurdity. It had humor, heart, and a slice-of-life flavor that was rare in sitcoms, but it wasn't picked up for a series, perhaps seen as too niche. Still, the idea was gold, blending real-life weirdness with everyday struggles. Melvin and Howard had the makings of a cult darling, and it's a shame we never saw how the full series would unfold. Some sitcoms vanished too soon, not because they failed, but because television didn't give them a fair shot. These 20 shows brought laughter, heart, and originality to the 70s and beyond. If laughter truly is timeless, maybe it's time these lost gems got the second chance they always deserved.